Welcome back to the channel USA Coins 69, my friends and fellow treasure hunters, to another exciting journey into the fascinating world of coins. Today, we're going deep into American history to uncover the story of a coin that might look ordinary at first glance, but carries with it a world of intrigue, beauty, and value, the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln wheat penny from the year 1939. This tiny copper coin, something you might expect to find tossed in a jar or lying forgotten in an old drawer, has captured the attention of collectors for decades. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll discover just how much this humble penny can actually be worth, and trust me, the number is going to leave you amazed. Now let's take a step back in time to set the stage. The year was 1939. America was still clawing its way out of the Great Depression, and the winds of World War II were already sweeping across Europe. It was a time of uncertainty, of struggle, but also of resilience. Everyday Americans counted every cent, and pennies weren't just coins, they were part of survival. The Lincoln wheat penny was already a familiar sight in pockets and purses, first introduced back in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln on the centennial of his birth. By 1939, the design had already become iconic, with the familiar bust of Lincoln on the obverse and those two strong wheat stalks framing the words, 1 cent, on the reverse. But what makes the 1939 wheat penny so special? To answer that, let's talk design and symbolism. On the front of the coin, you'll see Victor David Brenner's famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln. This was the very first time a real historical figure appeared on a U.S. circulating coin, and choosing Lincoln was no accident. He represented unity, freedom, and strength during one of the most difficult periods in American history. The inscriptions include, "In God We Trust," above his head, "Liberty," to the left, and the date, 1939, on the right. Every detail of this design carries meaning, from the simplicity of the lettering to the dignified pose of Lincoln himself. Flip it over, and you're greeted by the reverse side, the wheat stalks. They symbolize prosperity and the hard work of the American people, the backbone of the nation's economy. Between them is the proud declaration, 1 cent, with "United States of America" right below. Above those words rests "E pluribus unum," the motto meaning, out of many, one. The wheat design, elegant and simple, has long been a favorite among collectors for its rustic beauty and historical weight. Now here's where things get even more interesting. The 1939 Lincoln wheat penny was struck at multiple mints, and each has its own story. The Philadelphia Mint produced the largest number, and these bear no mint mark at all. Then you have the Denver Mint coins, marked with a small d under the date, and the San Francisco Mint coins, marked with an S. While millions of these pennies were made in total, what collectors seek out are those that survived the decades in pristine, uncirculated condition. Imagine how many of these coins passed through hands at grocery stores, diners, and gas stations, carrying with them the stories of ordinary Americans during a turbulent time. Finding one that has never been worn down, that still has its sharp details and original luster, is like finding a time capsule preserved for more than 80 years, and let's not forget the world of minting errors, which makes coin collecting even more exciting. Some 1939 wheat pennies display doubling on the date or lettering, slight misalignments in the strike, or other small irregularities that make them unique. These rare mistakes transform an ordinary coin into a collector's dream, because they are literally one of a kind. If you were lucky enough to stumble upon a double die variety or another striking error from 1939, you'd be holding something far more valuable than just a standard cent. Collectors around the world are drawn to the 1939 Lincoln wheat penny not just for its beauty, but because it represents a pivotal moment in history. Think about it, a coin minted in the shadow of war, circulating in the pockets of families who had endured the Depression, a coin that may have bought bread, candy, or a newspaper in a time when every penny mattered. It is more than metal, it is memory, it is resilience, it is history captured forever in copper. The demand for these coins has only grown with time, especially for those in gem-quality condition or with those fascinating errors. Auctions often see fierce bidding wars whenever a particularly well-preserved specimen hits the market. Collectors know that once such a coin enters a private collection, it might not resurface for years or even decades. That scarcity drives the value ever higher, and it fuels the excitement of the chase for anyone passionate about rare coins. So here comes the part you've been waiting for. What exactly could one of these 1939 Lincoln wheat pennies be worth today? Well, while common worn examples might still only fetch a modest premium above face value, the story changes completely when you're talking about an uncirculated coin, one that has been preserved in perfect condition, with sharp detail, rich color, and all the luster it had the day it was struck. Add in the possibility of a rare error or variety, and you're looking at serious money. In fact, a 1939 Lincoln wheat penny in remarkable condition has reached the astounding value of $48,000, yes, $48,000 for a single penny. Isn't that incredible? Something that was once casually passed from hand to hand, something that might have been dropped on the sidewalk or rattled in a pocket, now valued at tens of thousands of dollars. That's the magic of coin collecting, the discovery that history, rarity, condition, and a touch of luck can turn the smallest of coins into treasures of unimaginable worth. So, my friends, the next time you're digging through an old coin jar, flipping through a collection, or even coming across some pennies at a garage sale, take a closer look. You might just find one of these 1939 wheat pennies hiding in plain sight, waiting to tell its story and perhaps even change your life. Today we're going to explore a small but powerful piece of American history, a coin that at first glance may look like just another ordinary penny, but once you understand its story, its history, and its value, you'll never look at it the same way again. I'm talking about the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln wheat penny from the year 1940. Let's begin by traveling back in time to 1940. America was standing on the edge of change. The Great Depression had left its scars throughout the 1930s, but slowly the economy was beginning to recover. Across the ocean, war had already erupted in Europe, and the United States was watching closely, not yet involved but aware that the world was shifting dramatically. It was in this environment that the 1940 Lincoln wheat penny was struck, and every single coin minted that year became a silent witness to a world preparing for transformation. The Lincoln wheat penny had already been circulating for over 30 years by 1940. It was first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. Victor David Brenner's design was chosen, and it made history as the first U.S. coin to feature a real person instead of a symbolic figure. By 1940, Americans had grown used to seeing Lincoln's dignified portrait in their daily lives, but that did not take away from the power of the design. On the front of the coin, the obverse, you see Lincoln facing right, his image filled with strength and calm. Above his head are the words, "In God We Trust," placed prominently as a reminder of the nation's faith. To the left, simply, "Liberty," and to the right, the date, 1940. If you're holding a coin from the Denver Mint, you'll notice a tiny D mint mark just below the date. If it was struck in San Francisco, you'll see a small S. Coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint have no mint mark at all. Each of these mint marks tells a story of where the coin began its journey. Turn the coin over, and the reverse reveals a design that collectors have always admired for its simplicity and symbolism. Two wheat stalks rise proudly on either side, framing the words, 1 cent, and United States of America. Above it all, the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one, stands as a reminder of the unity of the country. Those wheat stalks symbolize prosperity and growth, a message that was very meaningful during 1940, as Americans worked hard to build better lives for themselves after years of hardship. What makes the 1940 Lincoln wheat penny so interesting to collectors today is not just its design, but its connection to history and the unique qualities that make certain examples rare and valuable. Millions of these coins were minted, over 500 million in total across the three mints, so you might wonder, why would anyone pay more than face value for one? The answer lies in condition, scarcity of certain varieties, and the fascination with mint errors. The vast majority of these coins were used in everyday life. They passed from pocket to pocket, buying gum, newspapers, candy bars, and gasoline. Over the years, most became worn, scratched, and faded. But once in a while, a coin survived in pristine condition, never touched by circulation. Those coins, still glowing with their original luster, sharp details, and unblemished surfaces, are what collectors dream about. The difference between a worn 1940 penny and one in uncirculated condition is like night and day when it comes to value, and then there are the minting errors. Imagine a penny where the date is doubled, or the lettering shows signs of doubling, or perhaps a planchet error occurred during the striking process. These mistakes, though unintentional, create coins that are unique, and collectors are always eager to own something no one else has. Error coins from 1940 can range from minor curiosities to incredibly rare treasures, and they often command high premiums at auction. Another reason collectors are drawn to the 1940 wheat penny is its place in history. Just 1 year later, in 1941, the United States would begin gearing up for World War II. By 1943, the need for copper for the war effort would even force the U.S. Mint to temporarily change the composition of the penny to zinc-coated steel. So, in many ways, the 1940 penny represents the last period of calm before those dramatic changes arrived. It is like a snapshot of America right before entering one of its most defining moments. Over the decades, these coins have become more and more desirable to collectors who want to build complete sets of wheat pennies or who are searching for high-grade examples to showcase in their collections. Coin grading services often play a role here. An ordinary-looking coin might be transformed into a rare gem once it's professionally graded and given a high ranking on the Sheldon scale, like Mint State 65 or higher. These are the coins that cross from being pocket change into the world of serious money. So now, the part you've been waiting for. What can this little penny from 1940 actually be worth today? While circulated examples may only bring in a few cents to a couple of dollars depending on condition, those rare, uncirculated examples with incredible eye appeal, or those with dramatic mint errors, have fetched extraordinary sums at auction. And one such 1940 Lincoln wheat penny has been valued at an astonishing $45,000. Yes, you heard that right, $45,000 for a single 1-cent coin. Just imagine holding something in the palm of your hand that looks so small and ordinary, yet is worth more than a luxury car or even a down payment on a house. That is the beauty of coin collecting. It teaches us that history, rarity, and condition can turn the smallest object into a treasure of immense value. So the next time you come across an old penny, don't just toss it aside or drop it into a coin jar. Take a closer look. That little coin might carry not only the story of America's past, but also the possibility of holding a hidden fortune. Today, we are unlocking the secrets of a small yet powerful coin, the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln wheat penny from the year 1941. At first glance, it may look like an ordinary copper penny, the kind you might still find in an old jar tucked away in your grandparents' house, but when you uncover the history, the design, and the rarity behind it, you'll realize that this is far from just pocket change. So sit back, because by the end of this video you'll know exactly why collectors chase after this coin, and just how much one in exceptional condition could be worth today. Let's take ourselves back to the year 1941. America was standing at a crossroads in history. The country was slowly emerging from the shadows of the Great Depression. Jobs were returning, factories were humming again, and people were beginning to find hope after a decade of economic hardship. But across the ocean, the Second World War was raging, and before the year ended, the United States would be drawn in after the attack on Pearl Harbor in December. The year 1941 was truly a turning point, a year where every coin, every banknote, and every purchase reflected a society on the brink of monumental change. And the Lincoln wheat penny struck in that very year became part of that story. Now, let's look closer at this coin. On the front, or obverse side, you see the instantly recognizable portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner back in 1909. This was the first circulating U.S. coin to feature the likeness of a real person, and the choice of Lincoln was powerful. Even decades later in 1941, his image still symbolized strength, freedom, and unity. Above Lincoln's head rests the motto, "In God We Trust," a phrase that had become central to American coinage. To the left is the simple yet powerful word liberty, and to the right, the date, 1941. If your coin was minted in Denver, you'll notice a tiny D below the date. If it came from San Francisco, you'll see an S. And if there's no mint mark, it was struck in Philadelphia. Each mint adds its own unique character to these coins, and collectors take note of every detail. Turn the coin over and you're greeted with the beautiful simplicity of the wheat reverse. Two wheat stalks curve gracefully along the sides, framing the bold lettering in the center, 1 cent and United States of America. Above it, the Latin phrase, e pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one, ties it all together. Those wheat stalks weren't just decoration, they symbolized prosperity, growth, and the strength of the nation's agricultural roots. It was a design that connected everyday Americans to their hardworking values. The 1941 wheat penny might not sound rare at first because millions were produced. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 887 million of them, the Denver Mint added over 128 million, and the San Francisco Mint contributed more than 92 million. That means in total, more than 1 billion of these coins entered circulation. But here's the catch: most of them were spent, worn down, tossed around in change for decades, and eventually lost to time. Finding one today in average circulated condition isn't unusual. But finding one in pristine, uncirculated condition, with sharp details, rich luster, and no scratches, that's where rarity begins to emerge. And then, of course, we enter the fascinating world of minting errors and varieties. Collectors love these surprises because they transform a coin into something truly unique. Some 1941 wheat pennies show doubling on the obverse, particularly on the date or the inscriptions. Others may have striking errors, off-center designs, or planchet issues that make them stand out. These mistakes weren't intentional, but they give us one-of-a-kind coins that can bring in serious premiums at auction. Imagine holding a penny that looks different from every other one struck that year, a true rarity born by accident. Now, why is the 1941 wheat penny such a treasure to collectors today? Beyond its design and its history, it represents a moment in time. This was the last full year before America entered World War II. Just 2 years later, in 1943, the penny would be made of zinc-coated steel instead of copper because the government needed copper for ammunition and wartime supplies. That makes the 1941 penny one of the last examples of the traditional pre-war copper cent, linking it forever to that era of change. Holding one of these coins is like holding a piece of American history in the palm of your hand. Over time, demand for the 1941 Lincoln wheat penny has only grown. Collectors seek them out in all conditions, but especially in those rare mint state grades. A coin graded MS 65 or higher with full luster and no distracting marks can fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Add in a dramatic error or a unique variety, and the value climbs even higher. Auction houses have seen bidding wars erupt over exceptional examples, because collectors know these are not only coins, they are historical artifacts and investments. So now, the question that has been building throughout this video: just how much can one of these coins be worth? If you've been following closely, you already know that condition and rarity are everything. While circulated examples might bring only a small premium, an uncirculated example with perfect detail and strong eye appeal can command extraordinary sums. In fact, a 1941 Lincoln wheat penny in gem condition, preserved like new after all these decades, has reached an incredible value of $47,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $47,000 for a penny that was once worth only 1 cent. It's the kind of story that makes coin collecting so thrilling. Something so small, so ordinary, and yet so full of history can hold life-changing value. This is why collectors around the world never stop searching, because the next great discovery could be hiding in a box of old coins, waiting to be recognized for what it truly is. So, the next time you come across an old penny, take a closer look. You might be holding more than just copper, you might be holding a window into the past, and maybe even a fortune. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of the 1942 Lincoln wheat penny, exploring its history, unique details, and why one small coin could be worth an amount that could change your life forever. The story of this penny begins during one of the most critical times in American history, the Second World War. In 1942, the United States had just entered the war after the attack on Pearl Harbor in December of 1941. The country was mobilizing at an extraordinary pace. Factories were shifting from producing consumer goods to producing tanks, planes, and ammunition, and every American was asked to contribute to the war effort. Even the humble penny was not spared from the call of duty. Though 1942 pennies were still struck in bronze, made from 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, the government was already preparing for changes. Copper was urgently needed for ammunition and wiring, and just 1 year later, in 1943, the U.S. Mint produced steel pennies instead. That makes the 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny the last full year of traditional bronze pennies before the drastic shift to steel. Designed by Victor David Brenner and introduced back in 1909, the Lincoln Wheat Penny is famous for being the first coin to feature the image of a real American president. The front of the coin, or obverse, proudly carries the profile of Abraham Lincoln, America's 16th president, whose leadership preserved the Union during the Civil War. Above his head is the motto, "In God We Trust," to his left is the word "Liberty," and to the right, the date, 1942. Flip it over and you'll see the reverse with the two wheat stalks curving along the sides, framing the words, 1 cent, and United States of America. At the top, another powerful motto, E pluribus unum, meaning, out of many, one. It's a design rich with meaning, reminding us not only of Lincoln's legacy but also of the country's strength during difficult times. But why is the 1942 penny so interesting to collectors today? First, it was minted in massive numbers across 3 locations, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Philadelphia coins carry no mint mark, Denver pennies have a small D below the date, and San Francisco pennies are marked with an S. While millions were struck, the true value lies in condition, rarity of certain varieties, and how well the coin has survived. Most pennies from this time were heavily used, tossed in pockets, purses, and change jars. Finding one that still shines with its original luster, showing crisp details on Lincoln's hair and beard, or sharp wheat stalks on the reverse, is much harder than it seems. Errors and varieties add even more intrigue. Collectors are always on the lookout for double dies, off-center strikes, or pennies struck on the wrong planchets. Even the smallest mistake in the minting process can transform a common penny into a highly valuable treasure. For the 1942 penny, there are known varieties with repunched mint marks and subtle doubling that make them stand out. These errors are the little quirks that collectors love, and they can drastically increase a coin's market value. Now, let's talk about condition, which is one of the most important factors in determining value. A 1942 penny in circulated condition, meaning it's been used for spending, might only be worth a few cents or a couple of dollars to collectors. But when we look at coins in mint state, those that were carefully preserved and never really entered circulation, the price skyrockets. Imagine a coin that still has its original reddish shine, free of scratches, dents, or wear, looking almost as fresh as the day it was struck. That's the kind of penny that sets collectors' hearts racing and drives intense bidding wars at auctions. The fascinating thing about the 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny is how it connects the ordinary with the extraordinary. On the surface, it was just a coin meant to buy a loaf of bread, a newspaper, or a cup of coffee. But decades later, it has become a cherished relic of America's wartime past, and for some lucky collectors, it has turned into a financial goldmine. Every coin tells a story, and this penny tells one of resilience, history, and the value of preservation. So, what's the real value of a 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny today? While most are common and easily affordable for new collectors, the rarest and most pristine examples can command staggering prices. In fact, one of the finest examples of the 1942 Lincoln Wheat Penny ever sold at auction reached an unbelievable amount of $48,000. This just goes to show that history may be hiding in your pocket change. What seems like an ordinary coin could actually be a treasure waiting to be discovered. So the next time you come across an old wheat penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. You never know if you're holding a tiny piece of history that could be worth a fortune. Today, we're going to explore one of the most fascinating and historically significant pennies ever struck in the United States, the Lincoln Wheat Penny from 1944. At first glance, it may look like a simple copper coin, the kind you might find in a jar of loose change, but when you understand its history, rarity, and unique characteristics, you'll see why collectors and historians alike treasure this coin, and why one of these pennies can be worth an extraordinary amount of money. Let's step back in time to 1944, a pivotal year in world history. The United States was deep in the throes of World War II. Soldiers were stationed across the globe, factories were churning out wartime supplies at an unprecedented pace, and American families were contributing to the war effort in countless ways. Every coin minted in this era carries with it a story, a reflection of a country in a time of great challenge and extraordinary resilience. The 1944 Lincoln wheat penny was struck in this context, making it more than just a piece of currency. It became a symbol of perseverance and hope. The Lincoln wheat penny design itself had been introduced decades earlier in 1909 to commemorate Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. Victor David Brenner's iconic design was groundbreaking at the time because it was the first U.S. coin to feature the portrait of a real person, instead of allegorical figures. On the obverse, Lincoln's dignified profile looks out from the coin, framed by the words, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date, 1944, to the right. If your coin was minted in Denver, it will have a small d below the date. San Francisco coins from this year carry an S, while Philadelphia coins have no mint mark at all. Each mint adds a subtle layer of uniqueness to the coin, which collectors find fascinating. Turning the coin over, the reverse features the famous wheat design, with two stalks framing the central text, 1 cent and United States of America. At the top, the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, reminds us of the unity of the nation. The wheat ears are not just decorative, they symbolize growth, prosperity, and the agricultural backbone of America, which was especially important during wartime when the nation relied heavily on both farmers and industry to support the global effort. The 1944 penny, in essence, tells a story of American strength, ingenuity, and resilience during one of the most tumultuous periods in history. While millions of these coins were minted across the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, what makes the 1944 penny so captivating to collectors today is condition and rarity. Most of these pennies were spent and worn in daily transactions. They traveled through cash registers, wallets, and coin jars, accumulating wear and tear over decades. However, some pennies survived in near-perfect condition, retaining their original luster, sharp details, and the vibrant copper tone that makes them stand out even today. These pristine coins are exceedingly rare, and collectors are always on the lookout for them. Beyond condition, there are also unique varieties and minting anomalies that add intrigue to the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny. Some coins were struck on the wrong planchets, creating an unusual appearance that makes them instantly recognizable. Others may have slight variations in the design or doubling on the date or letters. These rare errors can make a coin far more valuable than a standard 1944 penny, and collectors often pay a premium to acquire one of these extraordinary examples. Another fascinating aspect of the 1944 penny is its composition. During World War II, copper was a critical material needed for munitions and military equipment. In 1943, the U.S. Mint had to produce pennies from steel coated in zinc instead of the usual copper to conserve resources for the war effort. By 1944, the Mint returned to using a copper alloy composed mostly of recycled shell casings and other wartime materials. This connection between the coin and the larger historical context of the war adds another layer of significance and makes the 1944 penny even more desirable for collectors who value coins with a story. The popularity of the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny has grown over the years as collectors seek to complete sets, find uncirculated examples, and discover rare errors. Coins graded at the highest levels, such as MS 65 or MS 66, can command extraordinary prices at auction. Even circulated examples can be valuable if they possess strong eye appeal and minimal wear. The thrill of collecting these pennies lies in the combination of history, rarity, and the possibility that one coin could hold immense value while looking so deceptively ordinary. Now, the moment that all collectors and enthusiasts have been waiting for, the value reveal. A 1944 Lincoln wheat penny, particularly one in pristine, uncirculated condition, or one with a rare variety or minting error, can be worth an astonishing $58,000. It's remarkable to think that a coin worth just 1 cent when it was minted could hold such tremendous value today. This little penny has traveled through history, survived decades of wear, and become a symbol of both American resilience and the excitement of numismatic discovery. For collectors, it's a reminder that treasures can be hidden in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone to recognize their true worth. So, the next time you're sorting through old coins, whether in a jar, a drawer, or an attic, take a closer look. That small copper disc could hold not just history, but a fortune. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the story, beauty, and value of the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our explorations into rare coins and numismatic treasures. Keep searching, keep collecting, and remember, the smallest coins can tell the largest stories.